They dressed me in blue, named me Joseph, then bought me a junk car designed to overheat so I'd crash. Instead, that engine failure blew up their perfect family image. Can you imagine being told, straight to your face, that your very existence was an inconvenience? That the reason your parents treated you like a second-class citizen for 18 years was because you had the audacity to be born a girl, not the son they desperately wanted? That's my story, and trust me, the truth hit harder than any lie. It was my 18th birthday, and I was trying to hold a smile as my small circle of friends sang happy birthday for what felt like the millionth time. The grocery store sheet cake, adorned with happy birthday Josie in messy blue icing, sat on our coffee table like an afterthought. Make a wish. Melissa, my best friend since third grade, prompted. I stared at the 18 flickering candles behind me. My dad was checking his watch, again, for the 5th time in 20 minutes. The ancient Bluetooth speaker crackled, playing some random song no one asked for, barely cutting through the awkward silence in our too small living room. I closed my eyes and blew. A few stubborn flames held on. Woo, that means your wish won't come true, Tyler joked, earning an elbow from Melissa. If they only knew what I'd wished for, recognition, acknowledgement, anything to make me feel like I actually mattered in this house. From her seat in the corner, Grandma Margaret watched it all with narrowed eyes, her tea growing cold. She hadn't smiled once since Mom brought out the cake. My grandmother sees everything, she always has. My mind reeled back 4 years, to Sloane's 18th birthday. I was 14, wide-eyed, as 50 guests filled our backyard. Dad had hired a professional DJ, Mom spent 3 days baking Sloane's favorite chocolate mousse cake. And the grand finale? A brand new Ford Escape, gleaming with a giant red bow. Sloane had screamed with joy, wrapping our parents in a hug as everyone applauded. Today, 5 friends, second-hand furniture, a store-bought cake, and the crushing weight of comparison suffocating the air. Time for presents, Mom announced, flashing that practiced smile she uses when she wants to rush things. She handed me a small envelope. I opened it slowly, my heart already sinking. A $25 gift card to the local bookstore. Thanks, I mumbled, trying to inject some fake enthusiasm into my voice. My friends exchanged knowing glances. Melissa had gotten me a limited edition vinyl record she'd saved for months to buy. Even Tyler, working part-time at his dad's garage, gave me concert tickets. But my parents? A gift card smaller than what they gave my teachers at Christmas. The silence stretched unbearable. Why is everything different for me? The words tumbled out, barely a whisper, but vibrating with years of unanswered questions of quiet pain. Dad waved a dismissive hand. Sloane earned her celebration. Academic scholarship, captain of the volleyball team, you know how it was. We do what we can afford at the time, Mom added, her practiced smile cracking. Things were different then. But they weren't. Dad's accounting firm had been successful for years. Mom's interior design business had expanded last summer. The only thing different was me. My friends shifted. Uncomfortably, suddenly engrossed in their cake plates. The weight of unspoken truths filled the room, hot and suffocating. Then, the sharp clatter of Grandma Margaret's teacup against its saucer. She rose slowly from her chair, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. After all these years, she said, her gaze fixed on my parents, you're still punishing her for being born a girl. The room froze. Melissa's fork stopped midair. Tyler stared, wide-eyed. Mom? My mother's voice was sharp, warning. Not now. But those 2 words, not now, confirmed everything in Grandma's accusation. Dad's face flushed crimson. Margaret, you have no right to. No right? Grandma stepped forward. Her fingers shaking, not with age, but with absolute fury. I watched you dress that baby in blue for months. Introduce her as Joseph to everyone you met. Until I finally put my foot down. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Joseph, my vision tunneled as fragmented memories clicked into place. Old baby photos of me in blue clothes, my parents' discomfort whenever relatives mentioned my infancy, their persistent disappointment when I chose dance over sports, the constant push for short haircuts until I finally refused at 13. Is that true? I whispered, looking between my parents. Their silence was a deafening confirmation. Mom finally spoke. Josie, it wasn't like that. We were just adjusting. For 18 years? Grandma challenged, her voice a low growl. Images flashed. Baby Josie in tiny blue overalls, my mother introducing her infant to neighbors as Joseph, Grandma Margaret's intervention when I was 6 months old, the reluctant transition to calling me Josie instead. Years of subtle neglect, captured in inadequate birthday parties, muted Christmas mornings, school events where my parents arrived late or not at all. My friends, bless their hearts, began gathering their things, squeezing my hand as they made awkward exits. Tyler whispered, "Call me later," as he slipped out. Through the picture window, I saw Uncle Robert's truck pulling into our driveway. Grandma must have texted him. Always my protectors, those. 2. My phone buzzed. Sloan calling from college, probably for the obligatory birthday wishes. She'd know something was wrong the moment I answered. I stepped away from my parents, cake untouched, my heart splintering. In my bedroom, I locked the door and sank to the floor, the weight of 18 years of subtle rejection crushing me. So that's why nothing I do is ever enough, I whispered to the empty room. The next 2 weeks crawled by after my birthday disaster. I avoided my parents, working extra shifts at the bookstore, catching rides with Melissa, or taking the bus 13 miles each way. The silence in our house was thick as winter fog. I was arranging books on the fantasy shelf when my phone buzzed. Mom's text, "Come straight home after work. We have something for you." My stomach tightened. The last something they had for me was a $25 gift card. Uncle Robert offered to pick me up, but I texted him back, "Not today. Parents want me home." His response was immediate, "Call if you need me." When I arrived, both my parents stood in the driveway. Dad jingled a set of keys, Mom wore her church social smile. Behind them sat a silver Chevy Malibu, suspiciously clean, its paint gleaming. "What's this?" I asked, keeping my distance. Dad extended the keys. "We wanted to make things right. Just like Sloan got at her age," Mom added, her voice tight. My chest fluttered with cautious hope. Could they actually be seeing me? After 18 years of looking past me, could one confrontation have changed everything? "It's yours," Dad said. "Got it for $850 online." Great deal. $850. The number sank in my stomach like a stone. Sloan's Ford Escape cost nearly $20,000. "We'll cover insurance for 4 months," Mom said, just like with Sloan. Grandma Margaret appeared on the porch, narrowing her eyes at the too shiny car. She circled it slowly, examining it like she was inspecting fruit. "Mighty clean for something that cheap," she muttered. But I needed this car. The bookstore was 13 miles away. Winter was coming, the bus schedule was cut, and Melissa couldn't always drive me. "Thank you," I said, accepting the keys. "This helps a lot." Dad nodded once, mission accomplished. "Don't expect anything for Christmas." This was a big expense. $850. A big expense. For them? For the next month, the Malibu served its purpose. The radio worked, the heater blew warm. I made my shifts on time. Each mile felt like independence, even in this bargain basement chariot. Until Thursday afternoon on the interstate. I was cruising in the middle lane when the temperature gauge crept from normal to hot in 3 minutes flat. The steering wheel vibrated under my hands. A new warning light flashed on the dashboard. "No, no, no," I whispered, searching for an exit. There wasn't one for miles. White smoke began billowing from under the hood, thin at first, then thickening until it obscured my windshield. Cars honked, swerving around me. The engine made a terrible knocking sound. I eased onto the narrow shoulder, heart hammering against my ribs semis. Thundering past mere feet away, rocking my car with each pass. When I turned the key off, the engine made an ominous gurgling sound before dying. With shaking fingers, I called Uncle Robert. "I'm on my way," he said immediately. "Don't get out of the car, too dangerous there." 90 minutes later, Uncle Robert's truck pulled up behind me, hazard lights flashing. His friend, Mike from the auto shop, followed in a tow truck. Mike barely glanced under the hood before shaking his head. Blown head gasket, classic case. At the shop, Mike pointed to a crusty residue around the radiator cap. "See this? Temporary sealant." And here, he gestured to dried blue liquid trailing down the engine block, more stop leak. This engine was patched up just enough to sell it, probably. Knew it wouldn't last 2 months. Uncle Robert's face darkened with each word. "How much to fix it?" I asked, my voice small. Mike's expression said it all. $2,200 minimum and even. Then, no guarantees. $2,200. More than I made in 2 months at the bookstore. That night, I faced my parents across the kitchen table, the repair estimate between us. "The mechanic says it was rigged to run just long enough to sell," I explained, my voice trembling not with tears, but with rising anger. "Did you have it inspected before buying it?" Dad didn't look up from his phone. "For $800? Of course not. You could have been killed," Uncle Robert said from behind me, having followed me in. Dad finally looked up, his eyes cold. "That's karma for embarrassing us at your party." The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother busied herself at the sink, scrubbing an already clean pot, refusing to make eye contact. "You never wanted me to succeed," I whispered, the truth dawning bright and terrible. "Oh, here we go with the dramatics," Dad said, standing to leave. But just then, Grandma Margaret stormed through the front door, her face flushed with fury. "You could have killed her." On a highway with trucks going 70 miles an hour. Uncle Robert pulled up. Screenshots on his phone. Found the listing online. "Runs great, minor cosmetic issues only." But look at the seller's other listings. 3 more cars just like this one. All suspiciously cheap, all recently detailed. Within an hour, our living room filled with extended family. Aunt Paula and Uncle Steven stood beside me. Cousin Beth put her arm around my shoulders. Uncle Robert showed everyone the screenshots, explained the mechanic's findings. My parents retreated upstairs, closing their bedroom door, claiming to be the victims of a family mutiny. 1 week later, Uncle Robert and Grandma Margaret pulled into our driveway with a blue Honda Fit. Not new, but clean in a way that spoke of care, not concealment. "This car has been thoroughly inspected and serviced," Uncle Robert said, handing me a folder of maintenance records and a clear title. Mike put it on the lift himself. "New brakes, fresh oil. Good for another 100,000 miles. We put it in your name," Grandma added, her eyes twinkling. "Nobody can take it from you." Through the living room window, I saw my parents watching, neither coming outside to help nor acknowledging the family members providing what they wouldn't. I ran my fingers over the title with my name printed on it. For the first time, I felt something beyond the hurt and anger. The steady presence of advocates in my corner, people who saw me clearly and acted accordingly. "Thank you," I said, and the words felt insufficient for the immense weight they carried. 6 months passed like a blur. Winter thawed into a hesitant spring, and I found myself at our kitchen table, surrounded by envelopes bearing university letterheads. My hands shook slightly as I slid my thumb under the flap of the largest one, from my top choice school. Grandma Margaret sat across from me, her reading glasses perched on her nose, a mug of chamomile tea warming her hands. "Whatever it says, I'm proud of you," she said, her gaze steady. The envelope tore jaggedly, revealing the crisp letterhead of Westlake University. My eyes darted across the page, searching for the words that would determine my future. "Dear Josephine Trevelyan, we are pleased to." I couldn't finish reading aloud. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. "What is it, honey?" Grandma leaned forward, concern etching deeper lines into her weathered face. 60%, I whispered, blinking rapidly. Academic scholarship, 60%. Grandma's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, my stars. I slid the letter across the table. Her fingers trembled as she lifted it, eyes widening. A single tear tracked down her cheek. This is... She removed her glasses, wiping her eyes. This is extraordinary, Josie. The kitchen door swung open. Mom breezed in with grocery bags, hair freshly highlighted, not a strand out of place despite the spring drizzle. Any mail today? She asked casually, glancing at the pile of envelopes. Grandma. Margaret slid the letter back toward me, her eyes holding mine in silent support. Just college stuff, I said, watching Mom's face. She set the bags on the counter, movements practiced and efficient. Anything important? I held up Westlake's letter. I got in with a scholarship. That's nice, dear. Her tone was dismissive until she actually glanced at the letter. She froze, eyes narrowing on the percentage figure highlighted in bold. The plastic grocery bag slipped from her fingers, landing with a soft thud. 60%? Her voice pitched higher. There must be some mistake. No mistake, I said, unable to keep the edge from my voice. They want me. Mom snatched the letter, scanning it rapidly. Her face cycled through disbelief, confusion, and something darker I couldn't quite name. Dad's heavy footsteps sounded in the hallway. He entered, briefcase in hand, already loosening his tie. Mail's here, Mom announced, her voice tight. She thrust the letter at him. Josie got a scholarship. Dad scanned the page, eyebrows lifting fractionally. Well, that's unexpected. His voice carried the same tone he used when a client made an accounting error he needed to correct. Sloane only got 30% at her school, Mom added quickly, busying herself with the groceries, avoiding my eyes. And that was with volleyball. The comparison landed like a slap. I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. Grandma didn't bother hiding her disgust. For heaven's sake. Caroline, your daughter just received an incredible opportunity. Is that really all you have to say? The doorbell rang before Mom could respond. Uncle Robert stood on the porch, a bottle of champagne in one hand and a bouquet of yellow roses in the other. I hear congratulations are in order. His grin faltered as he read the tension in the room. Mom's phone chirped. She glanced at it, relief washing over her face. Book club emergency. I have to go. She grabbed her purse, never looking directly at me. We'll talk about this later. Dad checked his watch. I have a client call in 5 minutes. Good job, Josie. He retreated to his home office, the door clicking shut behind him. Uncle. Robert watched them go, then turned to me with a wink. More champagne for us then. Later that evening, I stood beside Grandma Margaret in her kitchen, drying dishes as she washed them. The celebration with Uncle Robert had left me lighter than I'd felt in months, but questions still gnawed at me, sharper after my parents' reactions. Grandma, I said, setting down a plate. Carefully. Was I even wanted? Her hands went still in the soapy water. She rinsed them slowly, deliberately. Her eyes, faded blue but still sharp, met mine. It's time you knew everything. Sweetheart. We moved to her small living room with its familiar scent of lavender sachets and old books. Uncle Robert joined us, settling into the worn armchair by the window. Sloane answered our video call on the first ring, her dorm room visible in the background. What's going on? Sloane asked, her face tight with concern. Grandma took a deep breath. Your parents had very specific expectations when Caroline got pregnant with Josie. After having you, they wanted a son. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. What? Your mother dressed you in blue for months after you were born, Grandma continued. She called you Joseph, introduced you that way to everyone. Uncle Robert nodded grimly. Until Mom finally put her foot down when you were about 6 months old. I knew something was off, but they never told me. This, Sloane said, her voice small on the screen. Grandma rose and retrieved a shoebox from her closet. Inside were photos I'd never seen, a baby in blue overalls, tiny baseball caps, miniature sneakers with sports logos. "That's me," I whispered, touching the glossy surface of a photo showing my mother holding an infant in a blue onesie with Daddy's little slugger embroidered across the chest. "Until you were about 7 months old," Grandma confirmed. When I finally convinced them this wasn't healthy for anyone, they reluctantly started calling you Josie. Uncle Robert reached for a faded envelope. "I've kept these emails from when you were little. Your dad was furious when your preschool teacher suggested you might have artistic talent rather than athletic ability. You wore my hand-me-downs until you were 4, Sloan added softly. Even though they could afford new things, I remember Mom complaining that all my old clothes were too girly for you." The pieces of my life rearranged themselves, creating a picture that finally made sense. Tears burned in my eyes, but then, unexpectedly, laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me. "At least now it makes sense," I said, wiping my eyes. "All these years I thought I wasn't good enough. Turns out I just wasn't the right gender." Sloane's laugh mingled with mine, though tears shone in her eyes too. "I tried to protect you. I didn't know how to tell you. Their disappointment isn't my burden to carry anymore," I said, the words forming a revelation as I spoke them. Uncle Robert leaned forward, his face serious. "Now, about that scholarship, let's talk strategy." We gathered around Grandma's dining table, university brochures spread before us. Westlake sat 1,200 miles away, a distance that suddenly felt necessary rather than daunting. "I can help with living expenses," Uncle Robert said, making notes on a legal pad. "And I've got connections at an accounting firm near campus for part-time work." Sloan tapped her screen. "I'll visit you instead of going home for breaks next year." We were deep in planning when my phone buzzed. My parents, suddenly interested now that others were involved. "We should discuss your college plans, Moms." Text read. "Dad and I have some thoughts." 3 days later, they cornered me in the kitchen. "Leaving the state seems dramatic," Mom said, stirring her coffee. "There are perfectly good schools here." Dad nodded. "Besides, who's going to help your mother around the house?" I kept my voice neutral. "I've made my decision." "It's like you're abandoning your family," Mom said, her voice dripping with passive-aggressive sweetness. Dad leaned against the counter. "You know, your academic success really reflects the values we instilled in you." The audacity nearly took my breath away. "The values Grandma Margaret instilled in me," I corrected him. "We're willing to help with tuition," Mom offered suddenly, "if you stay in state, of course, and maintain the right GPA and come home weekends." I thought of all the strings that had held me back, tangled around me since birth. "No thank you," I said quietly, meeting her eyes directly for the first time in months. "I've got this covered." Their matching expressions of shock almost made me laugh. They never expected me to refuse. They never expected me to know my worth. But I did now. And I wasn't looking back. The day before moving, I folded the last of my t-shirts and placed them in the duffel bag splayed open on my bed. My childhood room looked strange now, walls bare where posters once hung, shelves empty of books and trinkets. The space felt hollow, like it never really belonged to me in the first place. From the hallway, Mom hovered in the doorway for the 3rd time that hour. "Don't forget to pack a raincoat. The forecast says thunderstorms next week." "Already packed," I answered without looking up. She lingered, fingers tapping against the doorframe. "And you've got enough money for emergencies? The ATM fees on campus are ridiculous." Uncle Robert had handled that yesterday, setting up a new account at a bank with branches near campus. But I just nodded, not sharing the information. "I'm covered." Through the wall, I heard Dad on the phone, his voice rising and falling as he told someone about my daughter heading off to college. The pride in his voice made me want to laugh. Where was that pride last week when he warned me I'd probably flunk out by Christmas? Grandma Margaret appeared behind Mom, carrying a small box. "Found these in my attic." Thought you might want them. She slipped past Mom and set the box on my bed, photo albums from my dance. Recitals that my parents never bothered to attend. Thanks, Grandma. Our eyes met, a silent understanding passing between us. Mom stepped forward. I could have given her those. I have all her recital programs somewhere. Do you? Grandma raised an eyebrow. Funny, I don't recall you attending many of them. Mom's face flushed. She retreated down the hallway, calling over her shoulder, I'm making sandwiches for the road. When she was gone, I whispered, you didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Grandma tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Some truths need saying, even at this late hour. The doorbell rang. Through my window, I spotted Uncle Robert's SUV parked behind Sloane's compact car. My heart leaped. Sloane wasn't supposed to arrive until tomorrow. I rushed downstairs to find my sister standing in the foyer, her hair shorter than when I last saw her, eyes bright with mischief. Surprise. She threw her arms around me. You think I'd miss moving my little sister to college? Dad emerged from his office, his face tight with confusion. Sloane, we weren't expecting you until tomorrow. Plans changed, she shrugged, not offering further explanation. Where's Mom? Kitchen, I said, unable to stop smiling. That night, after the packing was mostly done and our parents had retreated to their bedroom, Sloane and I sat cross-legged on my mattress, now stripped of sheets and blankets. Remember when we used to build forts in here? Sloane asked, running her hand over the bare mattress. You always made me be the prisoner while you were the guard. She laughed softly. Yeah, I was a bossy kid. The moonlight slanted through my window, casting half her face in shadow. She looked older suddenly, tired around the eyes. Sloane. I hesitated. Were they different with you better? She snorted. Better? No, just different. She looked down at her hands. Being the favorite wasn't a gift. Josie, it was a cage. What do you mean? Every achievement had to be bigger than the last. Every decision scrutinized to make sure I was living up to their expectations. She met my eyes. At least, they left you alone enough to figure out who you actually are. I'd never thought of it that way. But they gave you everything. Material things, sure, but they were always watching, always pushing. They had my whole life mapped out. She looked around the nearly empty room. You're escaping. I'm still trying to. We talked until sunrise, truths flowing between us that had been dammed up for years. For the first time, I saw my sister not as the golden child, but as another casualty of our parents' warped love. Morning arrived with a flurry of activity. Uncle Robert and Grandma loaded the last boxes into the SUV while Mom fussed with a cooler of snacks nobody asked for. Dad stood awkwardly in the driveway, jingling his keys. Call when you get there. And remember what I said about that economics professor. His grading curve is brutal. The neighbors watched from their porches as my parents made a show of teary hugs and last-minute advice. For their audience, they played the part of devoted parents sending their daughter off to college. I gave each a brief, appropriate hug. To Dad, I said, nothing. To Mom, I whispered close to her ear, I forgive you, but I won't forget. Her body stiffened against mine. Then I was in the SUV, Sloane beside me, Grandma and Uncle Robert in front. As we pulled away, I watched my childhood home shrink in the rearview mirror. With each mile marker, something lifted from my shoulders, a weight I'd carried so long I forgot it was there. You know, Sloane said quietly, I'm thinking of transferring, maybe somewhere on the West Coast. Grandma chuckled from the front seat. My mother nearly disowned me when I moved 50 miles away from home. Said I was abandoning the family. What did you do? I asked. Live my life anyway. She turned, eyes crinkling. Some patterns need breaking, sweet girl. By afternoon, we reached campus. My dorm room was tiny, but entirely mine. No history here, no comparison, no constant evaluation. That night, after everyone left, I called Grandma instead of my parents. As we talked, I stared out the Window at students crossing the quad, laughing, living. For the first time in 18 years, I took a full breath. 3 months later, the email sat open on my laptop screen. 3 sentences, carefully composed over 2 hours. A boundary drawn in pixels and punctuation. I won't be coming home for Thanksgiving this year. I have plans with friends here. I hope you understand. I read it again, cursor hovering over send. 3 months at university had built a foundation beneath me. Dean's List midterms, new friends who knew nothing of Joseph. Weekends free from the weight of constant comparison. The thought of returning home made my chest tighten. My phone lit up. Sloane's name appeared on screen. "Did you send it yet?" she asked when I answered, her voice crisp against the background noise of her apartment. Still working up the nerve, I admitted, watching raindrops race each other down my dorm window. November in Massachusetts brings early darkness and skies the color of wet cement. "I'm not going either," Sloane said. "I already told them last week." "How'd they take it?" A short, humorless laugh. "Dad sent me a lecture about family traditions." Mom cried. The familiar guilt rose, but something new rose alongside it, determination. I pressed send before I could change my mind. "Done," I said, the word carrying more weight than its single syllable suggests. "Good for you," Sloane said. "Boundaries, right?" "That's what my therapist calls it." The response came faster than I expected. My phone buzzed with 3 successive texts from Mom, each more laden with emotional leverage than the last. "Family needs to be together on holidays." "What?" "Will we tell the neighbors? Your father and I are very disappointed." Then my phone rang. "Dad." I let it go to voicemail. Grandma Margaret called an hour later. "They've been blowing up my phone," she said without preamble. "Trying to get me to convince you." "What did you tell them?" "That sometimes boundaries need to be clear." Her voice carried the steadiness of someone who's weathered many storms. "Stand your ground, Josie." The week brought escalation. Dad's stern email landed in my inbox, thick with words like respect and tradition and proper family values. Uncle Robert forwarded messages where my parents had reached out to cousins, trying to create a pressure campaign. The final blow came on Saturday morning. A text from my neighbor back home. "Sorry you couldn't get time off work for Thanksgiving. Your mom says you're working so hard at your campus job. Hope your boss gives you Christmas off at least." I sat on my bed, staring at my phone. The lie they'd created wrapped around me like old familiar hands. Then Mom's message arrived. "Since you can't come to us, we'll come to you. Dad and I will drive up Wednesday afternoon. We've already booked a hotel near campus." My fingers shook as I typed my response. "This isn't a good time for a visit. I think we should consider family counseling before we meet in person again." The reply came within seconds. "Therapy is unnecessary. We've always been supportive parents." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of 18 years of denial pressing down. When I opened them, I texted Grandma Margaret and Uncle Robert, then Sloane. Within an hour, our counterplans were set. Wednesday afternoon found me sitting in the Golden Bean, a coffee shop 3 blocks from campus. I'd chosen a corner table with 6 chairs. The place smelled of cinnamon and espresso, music playing, just loud enough to provide privacy without drowning conversation. My parents arrived first. 10 minutes early, Dad checking his watch as they entered, Mom scanning the room with anxious eyes. They spotted me and approached, their smiles too wide, too rehearsed. "There's our college girl," Mom said, leaning in for a hug I didn't return. Uncle Robert and Grandma Margaret arrived 5 minutes later, their presence shifting the energy immediately. Dad's smile hardened. "What are they doing here?" he asked, his voice tight. "Support," I said silently, placing my phone at the center of the table, Sloane's face visible on the screen from her video call. "Is this an ambush?" Dad asked, color rising in his face. "It's a conversation that's 18 years overdue," Sloane said from the phone. Dad straightened his shoulders, falling into the posture he used at Rotary Club speeches. "Now, listen here," he began, his voice measured. Family loyalty is the foundation of. I opened my backpack and pulled out a manila envelope, sliding out several photos and placing them on the table. Baby pictures, me in blue overalls, me in a baseball cap, me in a tiny suit at my christening. You named me Joseph, I said quietly. You dressed me as a boy. You introduced me as your son. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. Josie, we did the best we could with. No. Sloane interrupted, her voice clear through the speaker. You did what was easiest for you. You punished her for being born a girl, Grandma added, her eyes never leaving my mother's face. For 18 years. The coffee shop continued its normal rhythm around us, espresso machines hissing, customers chatting, music playing, while at our table, time seemed suspended. We're your daughters, I said, meeting each of my parents' eyes in turn, not your projects. Sloane nodded on screen. If you want a relationship with either of us going forward, we need 3 things. Her voice was calm but firm. First, acknowledge what you did without excuses. Second, I continued, family therapy, real participation, not just showing up. And third, Sloane finished, respect for our boundaries going forward. Dad's face darkened to crimson. This is ridiculous. You've turned everyone against us. He gestured wildly toward Uncle Robert and Grandma, feeding them lies about. They're not lies if I lived them, I said, my voice steadier than I felt inside. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. We love you, Josie. We've always loved you. We just wanted the best. You wanted a son, I corrected her, and when you got me instead, you settled for having a lesser daughter. The silence that followed felt weighted with 18 years of unspoken truth. Grandma Margaret sighed, the sound heavy with disappointment. After all these years, she murmured, and you still can't face it. I looked at my parents, really looked at them. Dad rigid with anger, Mom crumbling under the weight of exposure, neither capable of the simple words that might begin to heal this breach. A strange calm settled over me as I stood, gathering my photos and sliding them back into my bag. I think we're done here, I said quietly. I walked away without looking back, the bell above the coffee shop door chiming a final note as I stepped into the crisp November air, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in 18 years. A year later, my dorm room glows golden in the afternoon light. Unlike the stark white walls of my childhood bedroom, these walls tell my stories, concert tickets from shows with friends who chose to be family, Polaroids of Sloane and me making ridiculous faces at the beach, and proudly centered. Above my desk, my Dean's List certificate in a simple black frame. You managed to fit an entire life into 300 square feet, says Maya, my roommate, lounging across my bed with her sociology textbook. She points to the bulletin board where Grandma Margaret's latest letter sits prominently. Your grandmother still writes actual letters. That's precious. I run my fingers over Grandma's familiar handwriting. She says email Axel. The truth is, wise old Margaret knows how much I treasure holding something she touched, a physical connection spanning the miles between us. 1 year. That's how long it's been since I walked away from that coffee shop table, since I stopped trying to extract water from the stone that is my parents' love. The calendar on my wall marks monthly sister weekends with little heart stickers. Purple circles indicate video calls with Grandma and Uncle Robert. What's missing speaks volumes, as there are no photos of my parents anywhere in this carefully curated space. My phone buzzes with a text from Sloane. Still on for Thanksgiving at my place? Robin Graham's confirmed. Bringing 2 pies and that green bean thing you pretend to hate, but secretly love. I smile, typing back. Wouldn't miss it. Making Mom's cranberry sauce recipe. The one thing she got right. The irony isn't lost on me. The only maternal legacy I choose to carry forward is a recipe, not the emotional baggage I spent 18 years collecting. My therapist would call this progress. 3 sessions a month, courtesy of University Health Services, has taught me to recognize what's worth keeping and what needs releasing. On my desk sits my psychology journal, the one Professor Winters encouraged me to keep. Its pages chronicle the journey from confusion to clarity, from pain to purpose. Last week's entry marks a milestone. I helped another student, a freshman whose parents favor her twin brother, navigate the familiar territory of conditional love. Sometimes the family we're born into isn't the family that helps us grow, I told her, words that would have sounded like empty platitudes a year ago, but now carry the weight of lived experience. Maya glances at the single holiday card pinned to the corner of my bulletin board, the obligatory correspondence from my parents, featuring a stock family photo from years ago, before the truth exploded.